All right, well, good morning, everybody. We're going to sing I've Got Peace Like a River. Please join us. Once I find my place. I've got peace like a river. I got peace like a river. In my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul.
Thank you. What an energetic start to our morning. Welcome, everyone, to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we like to say in short, to create community, find meaning, and live justly. For those who are visiting, we appreciate the discordance in our community. So we're trying to figure out which is best, live justly or work for justice. And what's the difference? Well, welcome to each and every one of you. We also want to begin, as we do each Sunday, by embracing all that you bring with you to this space, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning, and that includes those of you who are in the room with us, as well as those of you who might be visiting us for the first time. We're glad to have you as well, and the many of you who are live streaming it with us this morning. So glad to have all of you here today too. So welcome one and all. You'll notice that we have a live candle behind us this morning. This is the first of the month. This is a candle, for those who don't remember, that was sent to us by our partner church in Felșoracos, Romania. And they actually light a candle during their services for our church every Sunday. And so they sent us a replica of the candle that they use. And we light it at the start of our first service of the month in honor of our very long time friendship and relationship with our folks in Felșoracos. So to our friends in Felșoracos, if you're joining us today or will be watching this later, thank you so much for always thinking of us, and we're thinking of you too. Okay, next Sunday, you'll want to know, is our church's annual meeting. We do need a quorum of members here, so for those of you who are members and can vote, please plan to attend. That will happen at 12:30 after this service, our second service. And there is an information table, and I think a board member will be there to answer any questions today after our service during social hour for those who might have specific questions. Okay. Now I am going to invite Jennifer Calvert forward to discuss one of the items that you'll be deciding on next Sunday, regarding whether or not to become an apartheid-free congregation, or at least to join that movement. So.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Calvert, and I've been a member of the church for maybe almost a decade. And one of my passions is Palestine. And so this apartheid-free congregation vote that we're going to take next week is a very important one as far as I'm concerned, and I'm here to tell you about 3 minutes of information about it. I do have just a few slides that I wanted to show you. And this one is actually a picture of a painting from 1835 of Hebron. And Hebron is in the south part of the West Bank. And there would be people who want to tell you that there was a lot of empty land in Palestine. So, of course, there's no reason why you can't fill it with people from other countries. And 1835, no, you can see. There's whole communities there. We're going to have a vote on whether we will become an apartheid-free congregation, and so I feel like you need to know what that would mean. We first heard about the term apartheid in the context of South Africa from 1948 to the mid-1990s, and the racial situation there has changed enormously, although it is a long way to go for true equality and non-discrimination to be normal there. But we now see that it's past time to call out Israel for this crime as well. I was introduced to the situation in Palestine by friends who'd been involved in it for years. And on their recommendation, I joined 2 delegations traveling to Palestine in 2013 and 2015. And then also joined a group of bicycle riders in 2017 who rode from Jenin in the north part of the West Bank to Hebron in the south part in 2017. And I fell in love with the country and its amazing inhabitants, and I came back with a broken heart as I realized more and more about their decades-old plight. And so due to the lack of media attention and reporting regarding reality of life in Palestine, Americans have been woefully ignorant about what amounts to Palestinians living for decades under an apartheid regime imposed by the Israeli government and with the approval of their citizens. And of course, the events of October the 7th had the effect of getting the attention of the world, and now we can no longer ignore what's happening in Palestine. So next. Please. So first of all, when we talk about apartheid, what the heck does that mean? And an apartheid system is an institutional regime of oppression and domination by one racial group over another, enforced through laws, policies, and practices. Israel has blatantly codified a racist governing principle in the nation-state basic law of 2018, which declares that, quote, Israel is the nation-state of the Jewish people. And, quote, the right of self-determination in the state of Israel is exclusive to the Jewish people. And so there are, 12 million people who live in the greater area, half of whom are Jewish, and yet Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people. So Amnesty International's report documents human rights violations, including seizures of Palestinian land and property, unlawful killings, forcible transfer, drastic movement restrictions, and the denial of nationality and citizenship to Palestinians. And together that constitutes a system of apartheid under international law. The whole world agrees on what apartheid is, and most of them feel that this is happening in Israel. According to the Conference of the United Methodist Church, within Israel and the occupied territory, the Israeli government has established its control over the lives of Palestinians with discriminatory laws and policies specifying where they can live, whom they can marry, where and when they can travel short distances, which roads they can drive on, how much water they can use. The water belongs to the Palestinians, but the Israelis control it. When can they access their own farms? What land can they purchase? Which justice system they are subject to, military or civil, and whether or not they will receive due process, and the kinds of punishment they will receive. And so for over 73 years, the government of Israel has forcibly evicted and displaced entire Palestinian communities and demolished tens of thousands of Palestinian homes and structures, leaving thousands homeless and causing terrible suffering and trauma. So I hope that you will join me and other members of our committee, the UUJME, which is UUs for Justice in the Middle East, in supporting our church in deciding to become a part of the apartheid-free congregations. Next. So if we decide to do this, here's the pledge that we will make. We will affirm our commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for the Palestinian people and all people. We will oppose all forms of racism, bigotry, discrimination, and oppression. And we will declare ourselves an apartheid-free congregation, and to that end, we pledge to join others in working to end all support to the Israeli apartheid regime, settler colonialism, and military occupation. Next. So when a congregation such as ours signs this pledge, we publicly acknowledge Israel's apartheid regime. We commit to take action in a way that fits our context, and we join the Apartheid-Free Communities Network that shares resources, opportunities for action, and support. And lastly, a slide. This is a picture of one section of the wall that goes all around the West Bank. And the wall in urban areas is unreachable. I mean, what's the word? You can't go over it. But what's interesting is on the Palestinian side of the wall, there's a lot of artwork, some people would say graffiti, whatever. And so I love this one because it looks as if there's a crack in the wall and you can look over to where Israel is and it's open. So thank you for letting me speak with you, and see you next week at the vote. Thank you.
Yes, you left the orange thing here. Did you want to let folks know there's an orange thing that they can get a copy? There's an orange thing back there that you can get that actually has a list of some of the affirmations that Jennifer mentioned. So.
There's very few on the table, but they will be handed out at the end of the meeting too, and you can see it online.
Okay, so there's a few on the table, and they'll be handed out next week as well. So thank you. Okay, I'll keep this one. It's rare, so it might be worth something in a few minutes. Let's see. I think we will forego our greeting of one another. We seem pretty settled right now. That was pretty rich food to contemplate. So why don't we go ahead and move into our chalice lighting? Thank you, Candace. The chalice is, of course, as I say each Sunday, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
The opening words are by Madeleine Albright from her book, Prague Winter, A Personal Story of Remembrance and War. I've spent a lifetime looking for remedies to all manners of life's problems, personal, social, political, global. I am deeply suspicious of those who offer simple solutions and statements of absolute certainty, or who claim full possession of the truth. Yet I have grown equally suspicious of those who suggest that all is too nuanced or complex for us to learn any lessons, that there are too many sides to everything, that we can pursue knowledge every day of our lives and still know nothing for sure. I believe we can recognize truth when we see it, just not at first and not without ever relenting in our efforts to learn more. This is because the goal we seek and the good we hope for comes not as some final reward, but as the hidden companion to our quest, It is not what we find, but the reason we cannot stop looking and striving that tells us why we are here.
All right, let's sing together just 2 verses. Blue Boat Home. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep. Drifting here with my ship's companions, are we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home.
Now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. And I want to start today with a candle for Lyle Morris and Julianne Morris. Lyle is back at home, but still recovering from bypass surgery that he had just over a week ago. Please keep them in your thoughts, and also want to kindle a candle for our dear friend, my dear friend Gordon Larson, who is under hospice care at this time. And we kindle a candle on behalf, as we have been for some time now, on behalf of the people of Ukraine and that region of the world suffering from the war and violence there, as well as the people of Israel and the Palestinian people who are suffering from the horrors of war going on there. Let's take a moment of silence, as usual, on behalf of others whom you might be thinking of, and you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
wanted me to stay, but I can't ignore the crazy visions of me in LA. And I heard that there's a special place where boys and girls can all be queens every single day. But I'm having wicked dreams of leaving Tennessee. Here's Santa Monica, I swear it's calling me. Won't make my mama proud, it's gonna cause a scene. She sees her baby girl, I know she's gonna scream, God, what have you done? You're a pink pony girl, and you dance at the club. Oh, mama, I'm just having fun on the stage in my heels. It's where I belong, down at the Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep on dancing down in West Hollywood. I'm gonna keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. Pink Pony Club. I'm up and jaws are on the floor. Lovers in the bathroom and a line outside the door. Black lights and a mirror disco ball. Every night's another reason why I left it all. But I think my wicked dreams a year from Tennessee. Oh, Santa Monica, you've been too good to me. Won't make my mama proud, it's gonna cause a scene. She sees her baby girl, and I know she's gonna scream, God, what have you done? You're a pink pony girl, and you dance at the club. Oh, mama, I'm just having fun on the stage in my heels. It's where I belong, down at the Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep on dancing down in West Hollywood. I'm gonna keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. Pink Pony Club. Don't think that I've left you all behind. Still love you in Tennessee. You're always on my mind. And mama, you're always on my mind. Every Saturday I can still hear your southern drawl 1,000 miles away. I hear those wicked dreams of pleasing Tennessee. I'm messing up the song, but mama, you're good to me. I'll make my mama proud, and know it'll cause a scene. She'll hear her baby girl, and I know she's gonna scream, oh, what have you done? You're a pink pony girl, and you dance at the club, oh mama, but I'm just having fun on the stage in my heels. It's where I belong, down at the Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep on dancing down in West Hollywood. I am gonna keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. Pink
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm probably going to mess up on my sermon a little too. But listen, your mess ups are beautiful. So that's the difference. Yeah, and Richet is not the only Hollywood star that is in our midst today. I brought another Hollywood star. To help with our Story for All Ages. So anybody who wants to come forward for our Story for All Ages, now is the opportunity. Yay! There we go. Yes. You know, this generation of kids has gotten so smart because they used to come up and sit on the floor. You guys are like, sit in the soft chairs, right? Feels much better. Okay, so do you know who the movie star is that I brought with me today? Any guesses? Someone's been in a lot of movies. Charlie McCarthy? No, not Charlie today, but good guess. Not Mickey Mouse? Good, good. Should I just go ahead and, without further ado, Winnie the Pooh? Yes. One of my favorite people, Winnie the Pooh. Hello, Pooh. Hello, everyone. That's very nice of you. How are you? Are you here for a visit? No, I'm afraid I'm looking for Christopher Robin. Have you seen him? Well, I don't think Christopher Robin is here today. I'm sorry you've traveled all the way from the 100-acre wood, but no, I'm sorry he's not here. Oh, Father, I have a very important question to ask him. Do you? Yes, I've looked everywhere. I've gone to Tiglet's house, then Owl's house, then Rabbit's house and Eeyore's house. I've even looked under the Two Sticks Bridge, but I can't seem to find him. Oh, well, I'm sure he's going to show up, but while you're here, what's your question? Maybe I can help. Well, I'm trying to figure out who I should become. Who you should become? Well, that's kind of an odd question. I'm not sure what you mean. Why would you want to become somebody else? Well, you see, Rabbit is very good at gardening. He is. Eeyore is good at Two Sticks. He's good at Pooh Sticks. Owl is very good at reading. Questionable, but yes. And Tiglet is helpful and brave. Okay. And Christopher Robin is very good at answering all my questions. Well, that's true for sure, but it's not really possible for you to become somebody else, Pooh, and trying to become someone you're not can only make matters worse. In fact, I seem to remember a time that you covered yourself up completely in mud to disguise yourself as a little black rain cloud. Yes. And then I used a balloon to float up to borrow some honey. I'm just a little black rain cloud hovering under the honey tree. Very good. I'm not done yet. Oh. I'm only a little black rain cloud. Pay no attention to little me. Very good. Okay, thank you, Pooh. I wish I could sing. Nevertheless, your plan did not work out very well, if I recall. You scooped up some honey and ended up with a mouthful of angry bees. Yes, then Christopher Robin tried to help by opening up his umbrella and saying, "It looks like rain." Yeah, and that didn't fool them bees either, and you both ended up having to run away as fast as you can, and I think you jumped into a mud hole to escape. Well, yes, I am very good at getting us into nests. Yes, you are. But the point is, Pooh, that you really should just be yourself. Find the things that you enjoy and just do them, whether you're the best person at them or not. So just try to think of one thing that you really enjoy doing. Well, now that you've reminded me of it, I do enjoy eating honey. Yes, we all know that is true about you. So what else? Well, I'm feeling a little the runly in my tunly right now. If only I knew where Christopher Robin was, I could ask him to help me fetch some. Well, my guess is that Christopher Robin is probably back at the 100-acre wood looking for you, going to all the same places you've been looking, and going right behind you. So all you're going to have to do is go back home, turn around, and walk in the opposite direction, and you'll probably bump right into him. Oh, goody. Then we can dump into some honey. Yes, you can bump into some honey. Well, we wish you good luck, Pooh, and remember, we love you just the way you are, as a kind, adventurous, curious, silly-willy-nilly old bear. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.
This morning's meditation is words by Maya Angelou. We cannot change the past, but we can change our attitude toward it. Uproot guilt and plant forgiveness. Tear out arrogance and seed humility. Exchange love for hate, thereby making the present comfortable and the future promising.
Jackie, thank you so much. Each Sunday you prove that you simply must be one of the greatest pianists on earth. So there is a philosophy called humanism that emerged in the 20th century that is well explained in the Humanist Manifesto of 1933. Its first two sentences state, "The manifesto is a product of many minds. It was designed to represent a developing point of view, not a new creed." Now, this has a nice ring for us non-creedal Unitarians, which should not be surprising given that 15 of its original 34 signers, almost half of them, were Unitarians, including John Dietrich, the minister of our Spokane congregation from 1911 to 1916. Dietrich went on to become known as the father of religious humanism. Humanism is one of only two major philosophies to have emerged from the United States, the other being pragmatism. And its founder, John Dewey, was also a signer of the Humanist Manifesto. I won't go into the contents of the manifesto, since this is not really the humanism that I want to talk about today, but its original 15 explanatory statements are worth being reminded of and can easily be found online if you're interested. I mention it now because it seems to be what most people today think humanism refers to, including most Unitarians who should know better, but don't. And I believe that this is because the Unitarian Universalist Association and many of the ministers that it has credentialed over the years have resented this core tenet of our liberal religious heritage and have failed to talk much about it in our congregations, hoping to replace it with what philosopher Harry Frankfurt calls bullshit. I'm referring to the dilution and supplanting of our tradition with nonsense borrowed from other religions and beliefs that accept fantastical and impossible ideas about the history, the world, and reality. Frankfurt says, "It is just this lack of connection to a concern with truth, this indifference to how things really are, that I regard as the essence of bullshit." Now, I know that's not very you of me to say, but it is very Unitarian of me to say. And I will remind you that when this congregation was founded in 1887, its bylaws stated that the authority of its belief is reason, the method of finding its beliefs is scientific, its aim is to crush superstition and establish the facts of religion. Back then, Unitarians knew what our religion was about and what it stood for. No BS about it. But over the years, I have often heard people, including visitors to our church, ask, "Isn't Unitarianism that religion that believes in everything?" No, I say, it's the religion that doesn't believe in much of anything. And I think this confusion, even among Unitarians, is an unintended consequence of the 1961 merger of Unitarianism with Universalism, which for those who aren't very logical is different from me saying it is the fault of Universalism. In my book, The Gadfly Papers, I write, "Universalism has died and has been displaced by a grotesque impostor in its place. Unitarianism, though muted, still lives, but must break free from the bonds that now restrain it if it is going to survive." It has been since the merger that both of these centuries-old traditions have become increasingly detached from their historic roots and distinctiveness. Universalism, a religion once defined by its belief in the universal brotherhood of humankind and in the universal love of God, has come to mean the simple acceptance of all religions, and nowadays, just about any nutty idea one claims to have. Unitarianism, on the other hand, has been increasingly muted because of its historic insistence on dealing with reality and accepting only the ideas that pass the test of science and reason. These days, sadly, anti-rationalism is a stronger force in Unitarian Universalism than its rationalist heritage. To be clear, I identify as a Unitarian, not as a Universalist, and certainly not as a UU. Not anymore. But I hold no animus toward Universalism. Still, some have written to me in defense of Universalism, and remarkably, they have done so by distinguishing it from Unitarianism, which I think is great. That's my goal, to help rediscover the distinct theological roots and singular qualities of both of these old, centuries-old venerable traditions, and to distinguish them from the new religious movement, the NRM, as researchers call it, known as Unitarian Universalism, which has become increasingly illiberal and antithetical to the principles its namesakes are supposed to represent. According to Dietrich's biographer, Carlton Wilston, who also happens to have been his spouse, and I have a signed copy by both of them, if you can believe that. Yeah, I just ordered a used copy and it came and it was signed by both of them. It's amazing, right? Yeah. So it was in 1915, while Dietrich was still in Spokane, that he began constantly using the term humanism, according to Winston, in referring to his religious belief. David Park's 1957 book, The Epic of Unitarianism, says that catching the scientific and anti-supernaturalist currents of the day, humanism voiced them as a new world religion for modern man. Its first advocates were the Reverend John H. Dietrich in Spokane, Washington, and his best friend, the Reverend Curtis Reese in Des Moines, Iowa. Reese also happened to come to the tradition as a Southern Baptist, as I did, and was a student at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, as were Peggy and I. So Park's book also says that Dietrich and Reese began preaching humanism in 1913. That's 3 years before he left Spokane. Dietrich came to Spokane in 1911 again, immediately after having been convicted of heresy by the Dutch Reformed Church, but he was accused of being a Unitarian by one of his parishioners as early as 1905, and deep down he probably was. He got in trouble in college for writing a paper that treated the death of Jesus as merely a human event resulting from his political actions, not an act of atonement for the sins of the world. He also called upon others to emulate Jesus' behavior rather than worshiping him. That's as a college student. He definitely was in the wrong religion initially. According to Winston, afterward, when a young reporter at the Spokesman here in Spokane learned that Dietrich had become a Unitarian, he immediately contacted our church. Winston says some other church would snap him up, the reporter feared, if the Spokane church did not act immediately. And it did. But the rest is not quite history. Dietrich may have come to us as a Unitarian, but not yet as a humanist. This evolution in his thinking not only happened while he was here in Spokane, as the evidence proves, but I would further suggest because he came to Spokane, where his mind and his inclinations were set free by our extraordinarily liberal congregation's fundamental regard for truth, based upon reason and science, and its complete rejection of superstitious thinking. As our original bylaws, drafted in 1888, say, Its first principle is freedom of opinion and is subject to no censure for heresy. Got to be a great place for a heretic to come, right? In fact, Dietrich was inspired to use the term humanism after reading it in an article about positivism that was mentioned on the back of a book given to him by one of our early church members. Positivism, loosely defined as the religion of humanity, which the article's author shortened to just humanism, struck a chord with Dietrich. This age-honored word, Winston writes, would be a good name for his interpretation of religion in contrast to theism. In short, Dietrich came to believe religion ought to be based on the betterment of humanity, while theism based it on a belief in God. That's the beginning of Dietrich's journey as the founder of religious humanism, which a lot of Unitarians caught on to, especially those in the western reaches of the U.S., even the furthest reaches of the U.S., as in here in Spokane. However, it wasn't met with complete enthusiasm and actually led to a major controversy in our religion known as the humanist debate, or the humanist controversy. As William F. Schultz, a former president of the Unitarian Universalist Association and executive director of Amnesty International, explained in a 2003 article, for more than a decade, from 1916, when Dietrich and another Unitarian colleague, the Reverend Curtis Reese, began preaching humanism to their congregations, through the 1920s, Unitarians debated the merits of a strictly human-centered, scientifically minded, ethically focused religion. Can you imagine a minister from our congregation causing such a nationwide debate within our entire religion? What are the chances? So that's a lot of history, and I haven't really even gotten to my main point. But to get there, it's important to understand that the origins of the philosophy called humanism that began in the early 20th century, right here in our own congregation, within the much longer historical context from which it sprang. Not only the unflinching commitment to reason and science that our congregation in particular was founded upon, right before Dietrich got here, but the belief in human goodness, human agency, and human welfare that has always, that's a big word, always been integral to the definition of Unitarianism, dating all the way back to Jesus. I believe Unitarianism is so deeply rooted in and defined by these fundamental principles that it was inevitable that humanism as a formal philosophy would emerge from it. Dietrich was inevitable. He may be considered the father of religious humanism, but theologically speaking, Unitarianism is almost synonymous with the term and always has been. For Unitarianism is essentially the belief that Jesus was human. A human being, not a God, which necessitates a positive belief in his humanity and his humanitarian teachings that put human love and welfare at the center of all our endeavors. It should also be remembered that Jesus and his original followers were Jewish, not Christian. Christianity is a religion that did not exist during Jesus' time. So his humanistic message initially existed within the context of Judaism, which is a religion defined by monotheism, the belief in one God. It is a Unitarian theology. Sometime after his death, non-Jews were also drawn to his teachings, and like his Jewish followers, they did not initially consider Jesus a God, but a wise teacher who gave us some good words to live by. His original followers, therefore, had what's called a low Christology, which I prefer to call a humanistic Christology because a low Christology simply emphasizes the humanity of Jesus and his humanistic teachings. A high Christology, which emerged much later, emphasizes the Christ of faith in the belief that he is divine. The latter view emerged decades after his death as some of his Gentile followers, who had no cultural or religious restrictions or taboos about deifying and worshiping human beings, came to consider Jesus to be a God, whom the Romans called Christ, for which they were called Christians. At this point, whether from a low or high or a human or a divine perspective, his humanity and humanistic teachings existed within the context of Christianity, right? Worshipping him as a God, however, emphasized his divinity and the preposterous myths about him while largely disregarding the historical Jesus, the human Jesus, along with his humanity and the humanity in his teachings. Soon thereafter, the original Unitarian belief that there is only one God and therefore Jesus was only human, could only be human, became anathema. Right? In 325 CE, the Holy Roman Empire, having adopted Christianity as the official state religion, established the Nicene Creed, declaring that the Father and the Son are the same person. Just over half a century later, they added the Holy Spirit to the mix, and the Trinitarian doctrine was born in reaction against Unitarianism. Father, Son, and Holy Ghost was born, and the Unitarian insistence on Jesus' humanity became heresy to even discuss. So always remember, we were here first. It would not be until, again, after the Dark Ages ended with the invention of the printing press that Unitarianism would be rediscovered, and with it, the humanity of Jesus. When this occurred, Unitarianism existed within the context of the Renaissance, right? So we've gone from Judaism to a Christian context to now a Renaissance context. And the Renaissance, again, refers to a renewal or a renewed interest in the pre-Socratic philosophers who were the first thinkers in history who attempted to understand the world in natural rather than simple supernatural terms. And they discovered a lot of brilliant science during just a couple of centuries, but they were eventually declared pagans, and most of their writings were destroyed by the Catholic Church. But the Renaissance, 800 years after this literary purge and silencing of dissenters, centered, or countered, I should say, with what in Latin is called the studia humanitatis, the study of humanity, right, including all human writings and teachings that could be found, not just those authorized by the leaders of one religion. And this is what our liberal arts model of higher education is still based on, sadly fading as it is. Today we refer to this principle as Renaissance humanism. Renaissance humanism, attributed to the 14th century Italian scholar Francesco Petrarch, who discovered and printed Cicero's letters, a brilliant Roman philosopher who was not a Christian, yet had many valuable ideas worth considering. For this, Petrarch has been named the father of Renaissance humanism, long before John Dietrich and the Humanist Manifesto existed. So you understand? Humanism existed long before the 20th century philosophy known as humanism. And it's an important point to grasp, that it's not a 20th century invention that infiltrated Unitarianism, leading to a rift in the denomination, as many UUs now believe. Unitarianism rather has always been synonymous with humanistic Christology. And its reverence for historical Jesus' humanity and humanitarian, more importantly, the humanitarian teachings that we should live by. And this has been so going all the way back to the origins of again, of Unitarianism, even if its defining quality endured through different historical context, including those that I've mentioned: a Jewish context, a Christian context, the context of Renaissance humanism, from which Eastern European Unitarianism emerged. Formal Unitarianism for the first time during the 16th century, emphasizing religious tolerance, freedom of belief, and freedom of the pulpit. Unitarianism in this part of the world still exists, in this part of the world where our friends are, still exist within a Christian context. They are still Christian churches, along with this historic commitment to the belief in Jesus' humanity and his humanistic values. Western Unitarianism emerged later during the overtly rational and scientific context of the 17th century Enlightenment, when the ideas and values that emerged during the Renaissance became widespread and were finally put into unfettered practice, leading to the establishment of democracies and other social, scientific, and technological innovations that have made our modern lives so wondrous. Some of which the irrationalists are now trying to end, like vaccines. Although Western Unitarianism began within the context of a very liberal Christianity, it went through a transcendentalist phase, beginning in the 19th century, during which its theological lexicon eventually expanded beyond the confines of Christianity, or Christian language, Christian definition. God was no longer the God of Abraham, but a more nebulous oversoul, the oversoul of Ralph Waldo Emerson. And a century later, as I've mentioned at length, came the humanist debate, challenging Unitarians to consider whether we need to speak of God in any terms at all, so long as we are devoted to the welfare of humanity as demonstrated by our actions, not our words. Another way to put it is that 2,600 years ago, the early Greek philosophers became the first group to collectively rely upon reason, sense, and nature to better ascertain truth and understand reality, relying upon their own human faculties and agency to do so, which necessitates also valuing human dignity, a belief in humanity, a belief in our powers to do something meaningful, to figure it out for ourselves without divine intervention, without magical thinking. 600 years later, a Jewish sect led by an itinerant preacher named Jesus taught that religion ought to be good for humanity, not humanity for religion. And that this principle is put into practice by treating others as we would like to be treated ourselves, and by sharing our wealth and our resources with one another, and by feeding the hungry and healing the sick and caring for the poor, forgiving one another, welcoming the outcast, unclean, and demonized among us, and avoiding violence. All of this is about as humanistic as it gets. As mentioned, this movement's earliest followers were Unitarian in their theology, as are Jews to this day. They have a Unitarian theology, belief in one God. But then came that lengthy historic hiccup that I've spoken of, the Dark Ages, that squelched this focus on human dignity, human agency, and human welfare for more than half a millennium before it reemerged during the Renaissance. The best example is the formal establishment of the Unitarian religion, again in Transylvania, and its Edict of Torda in 1568, the first religious toleration law in human history guaranteeing the freedom to express and choose one's own religion without fear of retribution or punishment. It's remarkable. Intolerance rooted in a commitment to peace, life, and human dignity. And these Renaissance principles inspired the Enlightenment reformers, resulting in the very first articulation of the humanistic ethic, philosopher Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative that no person should ever become a means to somebody else's end, but should be considered an end within themselves. And during the French Revolution, this ethic was reframed to what we recognize more readily today is the inherent worth and dignity of every person, a phrase that is included within the founding articles of many of the world's democracies that followed. And this ethic was later given a more in-depth explanation with the establishment of the 20th century humanist philosophy, Dietrich's religious humanism in particular, and its Humanist Manifesto. As the Humanist Manifesto's 13th affirmation states, religious humanism maintains that all associations and institutions exist for the fulfillment of human life. That's the humanistic ethic. But these days I prefer social psychologist Erich Fromm's mid-20th century definition of the humanistic ethic, that the sole criterion of ethical value must be human welfare, and that the unfolding and growth of every person should be the aim of all social and political activities. Human welfare and individual development, that is, ought to be the fundamental aim of all we do. And this definition gets at both the bottom and top halves of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. Too many times a society focuses on one half or the other, right? And communist, socialist countries do pretty good at getting the lower half taken care of, but they forget the upper half, the need to self-actualize and become ourselves and to be free. And Western capitalist societies tend to focus more on the upper ability, but forget about the basic needs we need before we even can begin to think about becoming our better selves, our higher selves. So this is the humanistic ethic is very well balanced in that, and particularly the way Fromm phrases it, because it requires us to concentrate on general human welfare and individual growth, individual fulfillment, individual development. And for those who are wondering, because I get this a lot, I say it almost every time I speak on humanism, but would you please just let it sink in this time? This is really important to understand, okay? For those who are wondering about other living beings, please do not confuse humanism with anthropocentrism. Humanism recognizes that we are not separate from our environment, not unrelated to the creatures that we share our world with or to the world itself, and that our health and welfare depends upon theirs. Okay? That's the bottom half, right? Human welfare. For human beings as a whole to be well, we need to have a healthy environment and a healthy relationship with other creatures. That's the lower half. It also understands that no individual can fully unfold without developing a great love of life in all its forms and the capacity to empathize with the suffering of all living beings. That's the upper half. To become fully ourselves, to gain the power of our humanity, is to become lovers of life and to empathize with all living beings. And this is why, for example, we often call those who care for animals the Humane Society, and those who are cruel to other living beings as inhumane. Being human. Now, by the way, I'm going to go off script a little bit here. It is an interesting question, how does humanism leaves out, it's a concern, right? Humanism leaves out non-humans, which is not true, but it's an interesting concern. What other animals on earth do you think about the welfare of human beings? or the welfare of any other animals outside of the maternal instinct or parental instinct to care for those that they need to survive to pass on their genetic information, right? I mean, as far as this is a completely human question, our relationship to beings that are not like us, let alone our relationship to the beings that are like us, sadly, right? So no other animals ask that question or consider that question that we know of. It is a humanistic question. It comes from the maturity of a species that somehow acknowledges we have a relationship with those who are not like us. It's really interesting. The research shows that most other animals, well, all other animals that we know of, they recognize their own species in nature and get along with them unless they are put in unnatural circumstances, like their habitat has been encroached upon by humans, they're put in a zoo, but otherwise they get along well, but yet not usually with other animal species, right? They become prey or predator relationships. But humans have long had relationships with other species, sometimes brutal, sometimes loving. It's a very unique relationship. So the question about our responsibility to other species is a very humanistic question, a very human concern. Okay, back to the sermon. Only got 3 more pages, so no, I'm kidding. Almost done. So the point that I've really been leading to with all of this history is that humanism, in the broad sense, is not a modern interloper into Unitarianism, but has always been integral and intertwined with it. With its very definition, broadly defined as a belief in human goodness, agency, and dignity, and a commitment to human well-being and flourishing through the social technologies of freedom, reason, and tolerance. Humanism has been the one and the only quality. Humanism has been the one and only quality that has remained constant throughout the different historical contexts in which Unitarianism has existed. In its Jewish context, its Christian context, its Renaissance context, its Enlightenment context, its Transcendentalist context, and its 20th century humanist philosophy and religious humanistic context. It always goes back to the strain of humanism, the welfare of humanity. Now, I won't try to give an appropriate name for whatever the hell the context is in which Unitarianism exists today, other than perhaps the term that defined by Harry Frankfurt that I mentioned earlier. But if it is to survive, and if it is to remain worth surviving, if Unitarianism is to survive, and if it is to remain worth surviving, that's another question. Unitarianism must again gaze upon the North Star that has guided it throughout time and through every storm, lest this historic and venerable tradition, unlike any other ever to existed, really does become the religion that believes everything. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Did you want us to do the same thing?
Yeah. We're running a little behind, so why don't we just move into our benediction and closing song? Thank you.
For the benediction today, words from Baruch Spinoza. He who lives according to the guidance of reason strives as much as possible to repay the hatred, anger, or contempt of others toward himself with love or generosity. Hatred is increased by reciprocal hatred and, on the other hand, can be extinguished by love so that hatred passes into love. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.